Hi friends, my name is Angela and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to go back in time a little bit. I want to go back to my goals that I set in January or February for my reading goals, and I want to see where I'm at. I want to see the stats. I'm a bit of a stat nerd, and so we're going to have a look at the last 6 months. We'll have a look at the kind of content that I've been reading and see how it aligns with the goals that I had set for this particular year. And when I say goals, they were really just like a bit of guidelines as to what I wanted to kind of keep myself on the rails. So I had a little bit of an end goal in mind of the type of content I wanted to read, or maybe new authors I wanted to pick up. So we'll go through the stats. I'm actually going to share with you the stats that have come out of Storygraph, and then we're just going to do a little bit of a realignment. And I want to just set some fresh goals for the next 6 months. Before we get into the stats, though, I want to share with you 3 books that I'm currently reading. The first one is 84 Charing Cross Road, and you guys, why did no one tell me to drop everything and start reading this book the minute I got it? It is hilarious. I love it. I don't want it to end. I absolutely adore it. This is actually a plain Foxed edition from Slightly Foxed, and it is really lovely to read. The pages are just perfect. The font's really good. It's a real pleasure to read. 84 Charing Cross Road is a unique book of letters that start in 1950, and I think it goes for about 20 years. And it's the correspondence between Helene Hanff in New York City and Marks & Co. booksellers at 84 Charing Cross Road in London. And she is approaching them wanting some secondhand books. They're a secondhand and an antiquarian dealer, and she can't find any of the goods in New York, so she reaches out to them. And this is their correspondence, and it just is absolutely hilarious, so insightful to the time. So it's 1950, the war is a few years over. There's still rationing happening in England, and so she is sending gifts over to the booksellers and their families, and then everyone's writing to each other, and it is so lovely and endearing and heartwarming. The letters are filled with wit and sarcasm, and I have been laughing out loud to this particular book. I'm loving it. I always have one book on the go, which is my commuting book. It might be something I read on the train, or I always have one in my bag that I might bring out when I'm at the doctor's surgery or waiting in line, something like that. And my current one for commuting is Date with Death by Julia Chapman. There's another few laugh out loud moments in this, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I don't want to share too much because I think there are some key plot developments at the start of this story, which if you have not read it and you want to read it, I would like them to unfold for you the way they did for me, which was very surprising and very funny. So I won't share too much with you. But the summary does say that people that like The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman will like Date with Death. I did not finish The Thursday Murder Club. I could not get into it. I think I did not finish Thursday Murder Club twice. This is much better. I'm enjoying that one. So that's on my, that's my commuting book. And the third book I currently have, well, I have a few more, but the third main book I have on the go is The Trackers by Charles Frazier. And I'm struggling with this one. I don't want to not finish it because I feel like so far we've only heard the toxic masculinity perspective of this story. And there is a woman and I want to hear her perspective. But it is a struggle. It's a bit of a slog. I think the only reason I'm continuing on with it is because I'm listening to it on audio because I have been driving into work this week. So I'm listening to the audio book. But yeah, the toxic masculinity of the Depression era in America is a big turnoff for me. It is not, these cowboys are not the endearing Yellowstone kind of cowboy. Yeah, it's just, I'm struggling with it a little bit, and maybe it's just that Charles Frazier is not for me, but I want to finish it. So I'm not too far away from finishing this particular one, and we'll see what the wrap up is at the end of the month. Okay, so we're going to get into my review. We'll do a review first of the goals that I set at the start of this year. The first one was that I did set a number of books I wanted to read for the year, just because all these platforms give you that opportunity to do it. I chose 50 books. And that was not a hard goal. I was kind of thinking I would read more than that, which is still an improvement on last year and the year before that. 50 books was the goal that I set. I also set a goal to read authors and stories with diversity, whether it was sex or race or translated books. Those were the sort of things that I wanted to try and bring into my reading a bit more this year. I wanted to focus on a mix of content, non-fiction, fiction, poetry, and some edifying books as well. I wanted to restart my commonplace journal. I told myself that not finishing a book is okay, and I'm not beating myself up if I decide that I just don't want to continue. Less TV and more books as a general rule. So those were my original goals. So let's get into some stats for 2024 so far. I do use Storygraph for my main logging of books. I just prefer the interface of it a little bit more than Goodreads. So the number of books that I've currently read up from January to the end of June is 33, which is on par. I think I've been reading maybe four to six books a month, which is kind of normal. It's not like I've read more just because of YouTube and sharing that with you. Storygraph also tells me that the books I've been reading have been reflective, emotional, funny, sad, adventurous, and mysterious. Those were the key moods of the books that I was reading. So I'm pretty happy with that, and it makes a lot of sense. I do think I do read a lot of books that have a lot of reflection in them. The types of books that I've read have generally been under 300 pages long. I've read mostly fiction, and just over a quarter of the 33 books I've read were non-fiction. My top 5 genres were no big surprise to me. They were literary, classics, historical, short stories, and memoir. And if anything, I'm a little surprised that there weren't more nature and children's books up there as a category, but you can see they're definitely within the top 10. I also have a number of short stories or selected writings, poetry anthologies that I haven't logged in Storygraph. So that would probably have upped a couple of those non-fiction things as well, but I don't log that sort of stuff. In terms of diversity, I have not been very diverse when it comes to sex or race or ethnicity. And it's not been a deliberate thing. It's just that when I started doing this, I really just started coming across books that I wanted to read, and I wasn't excluding books on purpose. I've added a number of books that would probably come under those categories to my TBR, and I hope to read a few towards the end of this year. But right now, I've just been focusing on what I want, just reading what I want, when I want. This is fun for me. This is not a job. I am not reviewing books for a living. And so I'm just reading books that really tickle my fancy. So not being super diverse is not a big red flag for me, other than the fact that I want to keep it in mind. So maybe in the future, when I do think of another book that I want to pick up, I might just push myself a little bit more to perhaps read a book that is translated or from another country I haven't read one from before. I don't think I'll ever read a book just because it ticks one of those books, but I want to be conscious of not excluding books because of that. I did log, whenever I finish a book, I do put a star rating on it, but to be honest, it's either a thumbs up or a thumbs down for me. I'm not really thinking about the logic behind why something is 4 stars or 5 stars. It's just, did I like it or did I not like it? And so I decided to give you a selection of my top books so far this year. The first one was Heartbake by Charlotte Ree, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, Drift by Caryl Lewis, Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne, Northwoods by Daniel Mason, and Graft by Maggie Mackellar. These are my standout books for 2024 so far. I had to narrow this down. There was definitely some more that I wanted to add in there, but I was trying to be very succinct and keep it nice and small, like The Enchanted April probably would have been up there, Pride and Prejudice, which I finally finished for the first time. But these 6 books would most definitely, they are the top ones so far for my 2024. So what are my revised goals for the remainder of 2024? I'm not concerned about the quantity of books that I'm reading, which is around 4 to 6 books per month. And this quantity is not forced at all for me. And it's a really great indication that I am prioritizing reading, which is something I want to do. All in all, I've been collecting a beautiful collection of books over the last number of months, which I've shared with you here in these book hauls or little purchases here and there. And I just need to start reading them, because I get so excited about it, I buy it, I bring it home, and then the same thing happens with another book. So I'm not going on a book buying ban, but I want to try and be more specific with the books that I'm going to be purchasing from now, I guess. And I definitely want to write a little bit of a list of books that I would like to finish before the end of the year. But I feel like I could do a little bit of a prescribed reading plan. There are some books that I have bought and I really want to get to, and I would love to be able to finish the year and say I finished them, like Pride and Prejudice, which I finally did. My thoughts focus or make a list of 6 books that I want to read and read 1 per month. Doing this, I think, will give me the freedom to read whatever I want, but still enforces me to finally get to that book that has been haunting my dreams and just staring at me from the bookshelf. And the sort of books at the top of this list would be Frankenstein, My Brilliant Friend, My Brilliant Career by Miles Franklin, probably a Thomas Hardy, maybe another Jane Austen, another Daphne du Maurier. These are the sort of ones that have been sitting there for a while, and generally they're classics, and I really do want to maybe focus on those. I don't have to say in October I'm going to read Frankenstein, but I think I'll just have a list of, these are the 6 books, and once I finish one, I need to pick up another on that list and at least have one on the go. Children's fiction is still a goal of mine this year. I have a number of books still that I want to get to. So I'm going to do something similar and choose one every month. So once I finish one, I'll start another one. So I'll always have a children's book on the go. So some books still to be read in this category are Heidi, Peter Pan, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. And I think I'd like to do this maybe leading towards reading something like the Chronicles of Narnia or The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe in December for Christmas. Commonplacing is still a big goal of mine. I have been doing it, but not really consistently. When I read a book, I tend to take a picture of or copy the text and put it somewhere for me to remember to write it down. But I'm not writing it down, and I want to be better at that. So I think I'm going to just allocate 1 day a week where I sit down with all of my notes from these books or whatever I've picked up throughout the week, sit down and really transcribe it into my commonplace book. Less TV and more reading. Honestly, I don't think this is a no-brainer. I would much rather default to pick up a book than pick up my phone. It's an ongoing goal. And I think as a side goal or a separate goal, I kind of want to be specific with what I'm watching too. You know, there are some movies that I really have wanted to watch for a long time, but I don't have a list of them anywhere. So it means that when I've got maybe time on a Saturday to watch a movie, I just don't know what to watch. So maybe I'll end up watching something again that I've seen a number of times, like Outlander or Bridgerton. But there are a number of movies that I would like to watch for the first time. So I think I might even write a bit of a list of that and where it is located, because so many streamers and so many locations. So I think that might be something a little bit more specific as well to help me hone in that, so I'm not just watching the same junk over and over. So those are my revised reading goals for the rest of 2024. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How are you going with your own goals? Are you reading the type of books that you were hoping to this year? Do you have to really configure your goals again? Something that I've realized through actually making notes around my reading now and doing, wrap up videos and talking about the books is that I'm not so much of a historical fiction first reader as I thought. I always thought that historical fiction was my first genre I would go to. And I think it is more literary. I really do. There's a lot of great authors I've come across this year for the first time, and they are most definitely literary fiction, not so historical fiction. So it's interesting where I think it's been a really good part of this journey is understanding what my real tastes are for which genre, and it's really opened up my horizons a little bit. So I'm excited to try a few new books to push myself a little bit, and I look forward to sharing that journey with you. So let me know how you're going with your goals. Maybe let me know what your top books so far for the last 6 months are, because that would be interesting to know. And I will share a link down the bottom to my original reading goals video if you're interested in seeing that, to see the comparison. So thank you so much for joining me, friends. I hope you have a wonderful weekend ahead of you with a lot of reading, a lot of cups of tea, and I will see you next Thursday. Bye.